Welcome to the GSMC Pets Podcast, the show that caters to pet lovers of all kinds. We'll talk about pets on social media, pets doing amazing things, and how to take care of the pets in your life. Whether your pet is a dog, a cat, a llama, hamster, reptile, or something more exotic, you'll find educational and entertaining information on the GSMC Pets Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the GSMC Pet Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Taylor Cowan, and it's another week down, my friends, another week down. The pain of society slowly being brushed away. Things are getting better. If you ask me, I think things are way better than they were a couple weeks ago. You know, I'm getting used to it, honestly. This whole quarantine thing might be the best thing that's ever happened to me. I just sit around all day. I've lost a bunch of weight, making sourdough bread and banh mi sandwiches. So things are all right, you know. Amongst all the grimness, there's a glimmer of light in my eye. Today, folks, we're talking about pets, as always. You know, you got cats, you got dogs. They're kind of expensive, right? A little too expensive, if you ask me, which is why today's episode topic, for as long as it will make it last, we might throw in a little extra bonus at the end, but I'm going to try and drag this out for the whole episode. We're talking about the cheapest pets you can get, the most inexpensive pets you can possibly have. And you know, if you're like me, you're frugal, as I like to say. A lot of people like to say cheap. I like to say frugal. And I don't want to spend a lot of money on my pets, even though I have 2 cats and a dog, and they are very expensive. That's why I'm doing this episode. There's pets that I wish I could have gotten before. I should have thought about it. But this is for the poor people listening to this podcast, like me. So let's just jump right in here, folks. Number 1 on the list of inexpensive pets is the goldfish. Yes. Very boring pet, let's be honest. You just put it in a bowl and have it swim around. You can get a goldfish for $3 to $15, or if you get a bullseye at the carnival. Now, the thing about the goldfish is, I don't think they... Oh, well, let's read this article here about goldfish. A classic easy first pet, a goldfish is an animal that adds life and beauty to the room without requiring much attention. That is true. They require no attention, essentially. I think you feed it once a day. Goldfish can live for more than 20 years, which, you know, they can live that long, but do they? Let's be honest. They have a memory span of at least 3 months and can be taught to perform tricks. I don't know if I believe that. I was always told they have like a 1-second memory span from, you know, random people. So what do they know? The article probably knows better. This is cheapism.com. Let's see. Their vision is surprisingly sharp and allows them to distinguish between people. Okay. It will eventually learn who you are, so don't be surprised if a day comes when your fish swims over to ask for food when you're nearby. Remind you of another beloved pet, the dog. This is a characteristic that children will love. Recognizes people, huh? You know, I don't know if I'm just believing this article anymore. Let's see. Unless won at the county fair, these animals cost between $3 and $15 for the standard variety, but up to several $100s for rare breeds. Those must be the ones that people have in their koi ponds. Which we're not talking about those. We don't want an expensive goldfish. The thing about the goldfish is if you want to live for 20 years, you can't just throw it in a bowl. Those are the ones that die in 2 weeks, the ones that get thrown in a bowl and you clean it out with a toilet brush. That's how they die. So don't do that. You're going to want to get a nice tank with the filtration system. You got to treat it well if you want it to live for 20 years and have that high memory span. Otherwise, it'll get all sick and decrepit and its wings will fall off. And you'll flush it down the toilet and buy a new one and tell your child that it was the same one, which you don't want to have to do that. Your child's going to know because apparently it's going to recognize your child after a certain amount of time. I kind of think that's BS, let's be honest. The goldfish is going to remember your face. Let's be real. So there's number one on the list. That's a goldfish. As I said, $3 to $15 plus whatever a tank costs. I don't know what that is. And then their food. That crap they are forced to eat, the flaky stuff that smells weird. Who knows how much that is. Probably cheap, though, and you probably get a lot of it for cheap. Let's go next on the list. We have the leopard geckos. These are $20 to $70. A little pricier. A little more pricey than I'd even like to have on my list. I'm trying to do under $50, but I guess, $20. It's under $50. Leopard geckos make a great pet for reptile enthusiasts. Yes. I've expressed my opinion on reptiles as pets over multiple episodes. As I said, I'm not a fan, but, it is what it is. You want a reptile, get a reptile. It won't love you. Let's see. They are enchanting, cheap, and low maintenance. The small spotted creatures may be shy at first, but after some love and care, they'll sweeten up to your touch, just like other pets. Leopard geckos are nocturnal, meaning they're less active during the day, and unlike other reptiles, don't require UV light bulbs. Oh, so there we go. That's where the inexpensiveness comes in, because those UV light bulbs can be kind of expensive. They do need an incandescent bulb and possibly a heat pad, depending on temperatures in your home or apartment. These animals also require a moist hideout to aid their shedding, a water bowl, and a second hideout for when they're feeling self-conscious. You need 2 hideouts? You need a moist one and then a secondary hideout? What is that? Come on. I know people who live in studio apartments. They don't have 2 hideouts in there. I guess the bathroom, you can go hide in the bathroom. The going price for leopard geckos ranges from $20 to $70. A beginning terrarium setup generally costs between $100 and $200. Geckos enjoy eating live crickets and worms, and weekly food expenses run from $3 to $7 depending on the size of your gecko. Now, $3 to $7 for crickets, that seems a little pricey, folks. If you ask me, you can go outside and catch your crickets if you got the time, or alternatively, you can get 2 inexpensive pets. This is my own, I'm reading a list off the internet right now for the cheap pets, but I'm going to throw in one of my own pets here, worms, and then you can feed your worm pets to the geckos. For the worms, we'll save the worms till the end of the episode. How about that? But worms as a pet are ultimate. It's like a pet and a trash can and a, compost farm, all in one. So we'll save that for the end of the episode, the worms. But then I guess you can feed them to your gecko, too. So you can get a gecko, cut out all the $3 to $7 weekly expenses. And I mean, $7 a week, $3 a week, that's $12 a month. Who can afford that? And yeah, that terrarium's a little expensive, $100 to $200. I'd say go on your local Craigslist or whatever, find a cheaper one than that. Find someone who let their gecko die and buy theirs. Because we're trying to keep it under $100 here for the whole setup is ideal, if you ask me. Well, folks, let's take a quick break here. We'll be right back. We got a whole list to scroll through yet again. I'm loving these lists. I feel like every episode I'm going to do from here on out is just going to be a list of things. I feel like they're more informative than anything else. But stick around. I'll talk to you in just a second.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And we are back, folks. We're talking about cheap pets, cheap on your pocketbook, and low maintenance, too. That's kind of the point. That's why they're so cheap, 'cause you don't really do anything with them. They don't really love you. They don't look you in the eyes and want to see you like a dog would or a cat would. They don't want to come crawl in your lap. They mostly want to hide under a rock or something like that. But, I'll take what I can get. My friends. Next on our list is an animal that most of us wouldn't want to keep in our home, but it's a classic. The ant. Folks, ants make fantastic cheap pets. Keyword there being cheap. They don't make fantastic pets in general. They're just cheap. And, you can look at them. They'll dig little holes and dirt, and you can look at the holes, and that's fun. Let's see. These are about $15 to $25. Let's read what the article has to say about them. The cheapest pets to own are often small, demand little attention, and are the easiest to care for. And that is definitely true of ants. An ant farm may seem a little dull at first, but often aren't popular choices. This probably isn't the best pet for someone who loves dogs, for example. I don't see why you can't love both. I don't know who wrote this article, but I think you're wrong. Just because you love a dog doesn't mean you can't. You're never going to love your ants. Unless, I don't know, you're a sociopath. But they don't have feelings anyways. That's besides the point anyways. It will save you a lot of money over the long term, having ants. Modern habitats such as the Antworks farm use a clear gel that doubles as food and allows you to watch the ants tunnel. Oh, that's cool. So they eat the tunnel. That seems bad for the ants. But yeah, it doubles as a food, and so you can see the tunnels and you can watch the ants eat their way to victory. Other ant farms are made from sand or dirt and require regular feeding and watering. These pets require little time, are cheap even by small pet standards, and can be a popular choice for small children. This is a good pet to get your child before you get them a dog or a cat. If they can't take care of ants, they probably can't even really take care of themselves. They are children, after all. But, before you get them a cat or a dog, try the ant. Ant farms can be found again for $10 to $25, depending on the design. The ants, about $15, including shipping, and food, about $6 a year, are often sold separately. I don't know what you feed ants, and I'm saying, I would think you don't even necessarily have to buy them special ant food. Just feed them crumbs off your table. Just scrape the crumbs off your table or out of the bread. When you finish a loaf of bread, there's all the crumbles left at the end of the bag. Just crumble that up, let it dry out, put it in the ant farm. I feel like that's just as good as any ant food you're going to give them, probably better. They probably like it more. So there's a pet, if you can call it that. It's really just a, infestation, but don't let them get loose. And, and now that I'm thinking about it, this article says it's a good choice for small children. I don't know if I would trust a small child with ants. They're going to open the cage. They're going to want to play with it. Next thing you know, you have ants all over your house. So think about that before you get the ants. Think about it. Let's go to the next one on the list. This is maybe my personal favorite on the list. I used to have these when I was a young boy. Great pet for children. It is the hermit crab. It's less than $10. Misleading name aside, hermit crabs actually enjoy company and will thank you if you provide them with a playmate. They won't actually thank you. You can pretend like they love you, but it's a crab. It probably barely knows you exist. The animals themselves are inexpensive, and it's fun for children and adults alike to buy young ones and watch as they grow. Once they've outgrown one shell, you'll need to buy their next larger shell, small cost. That's the fun part. Because you can buy shells, and you can like paint stuff on them, and they'll get into the new shell, and they'll be rolling around in the shell you painted. It's a lot like interior design, or I guess exterior design. Hermit crabs sometimes move between shells at night, so buy several shells and let them choose their daily outfit. That's right. Painted shells are controversial. There's a risk of using toxic material that will hurt the crab. Ooh, I didn't know that. Big controversy over the painted shells. Just make sure you find a non-toxic paint. Find one that a kid could use, that a kid would play with. Because if it's, if a kid can play with it, it's probably okay to be put in your mouth, like Play-Doh. And you'll need to remember that pet hermit crabs need water to drink, bathe, and replenish their shell water. So you always want to have fresh water in there. I remember I went out of town once with my parents, and my sister was in charge of taking care of my hermit crabs, and like 3 of them died. So, make sure you have a responsible individual taking care of the animals, because they can die. They can and they will. And they stink when they're dead. And you don't know they're dead sometimes because they like curl up in the shell and they get all rotted and pale. And yeah. A hermit crab on its own goes for less than $10, but you should budget between $50 and $150 for tank and decorations. Being small creatures, crabs have low day-to-day food costs. I can't remember what we fed mine when I was growing up, but you can get it anywhere. It's pretty cheap. I'm going to say go for the $50 tank. Since this is the cheap pets episode, we're going as cheap as we can. You don't need $150 for decorations for your hermit crab. Don't go to the pet store and buy the stupid little tiki head and like the sunken ship that costs $400 because it's at PetSmart. You can find, put a toy in there or something. They've way overpriced these things at Petco and the big pet chains. It's plastic. And then they say, well, it's special in your fish tank and it looks like it's underwater. No, forget all that. You don't need all the special add-ons. Yeah, hermit crabs are a great pet. Highly recommended. Let's try and squeeze in another one here before we move on to the next break. The betta fish. A lot of people have these. I know a lot of people who have these, and they try and get them to fight and stuff. I think it's inappropriate. These are $2 to $10. A second small, popular, and inexpensive fish to consider, kind of like the goldfish. Bettas, also known as Siamese fighting fish, are aggressive by nature and need to be kept in isolation. Males and females are less picky than goldfish, and aside from a need to change the water in the bowl and daily feeding, they make for low-maintenance pets that don't interfere with your time. Bettas often puff up and display their colors when startled or feeling frisky. They don't require much space, so a betta tank in the 5 to 10 gallon range is an appropriate size and can be decorated on the cheap with rocks and one good hiding place. Betta fish usually sell for $2 to $10, although rare patterns can command as much as $50. I had a buddy who tried to breed them and sell them. I don't think it went very well. A decorated tank setup costs $15 to $30, and yearly food costs can be up as low as $20. A decorated tank setup costs $15 to $30. See, why are they saying the hermit crabs is $150 for the decorated setup? I don't understand why that would be the case. Why hermit crabs demand such high-class decorations. It's not true, folks. Don't believe the hype. Your hermit crabs can be in a cheap cage, too. Make the decorations. Same with the fish. Don't go to the store and buy the weird colored rocks from them. Go find some rocks in your yard and just put those in the bottom. Some little rocks. Super cheap. Or, what I used to do with my flowers is I'd go find a neighbor with a bunch of rocks in his driveway, and I would just take some of those. Your neighbors will never miss them. Trust me. We're going to take another quick break here, folks. Stick around. We got a lot more lists to come, and I'm going to tell you a little bit later about worms as pets. The pet you'd never expect.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we are back again, talking about cheap pets, cheap and easy. That's it's a double feature today, my friends. We don't just want cheap pets. We want pets that we can just put in the corner and they do their own thing. And then you just, sprinkle some food in there once a week or something. Next on our list is the guinea pig. We all remember these. There's always one kid in class who had a guinea pig. They always talk about it like it was something special. At least this is what I remember from elementary school. And, it's not as cool as a dog or a cat, let's be honest. And just because that's the only pet that kid's parents would get him. And they always, I don't know, they'd always die. I don't think it's a great pet. I would never get one. But it's only $20 to $40. Let's read this article entry, see what they have to say about the guinea pig. Small, furry, adventurous, and cuddly. Guinea pigs are an excellent match for preteens. Younger children may enjoy them, but the small creatures can be injured easily if play gets rough. So they're not the best choice for families with preschoolers or younger children. These guys live for 4 to 5 years and relish the companionship of a fellow cavy, another name for a guinea pig. No, we're just going to call it guinea pig. I don't like the other name. So to get two. That's, getting a little pricey. We're up to potentially $80 here. I'm trying to keep it under $100. These Fuzzballs often whistle, purr, and squeal to express emotions, which makes them one of the best choices for people who like to know their pets are happy. So this one's got more emotion than, say, the ant, but a little more expensive. You can get an ant farm for the price of one guinea pig. These rodents cost between $20 and $40, and a proper habitat adds about $60 to the initial cost. Whoa! Monthly food, bedding, and hay can cost up to $30 a month, although the outlay can be minimized and made easy by feeding the animal leftover veggies from the dinner table. There we go. Occasional vet visits run about $45. More of a hamster person, that works too, as their care costs and temperament are similar to the guinea pig. I'd rather the guinea pig than the hamster. The hamster is too small, it gets stepped on. And a guinea pig, the larger the animal, I've noticed that typically it's more, feels like it cares more about you. The smaller you go, the less emotion it's going to have. You can feed it leftover veggies, that's amazing. I'm going to say skip the vet visit. It's a guinea pig. It's going to live for 4 to 5 years. You don't need to take it to the vet. Like, what do you know, has cancer. What, are you going to get that treated? No. All the vet's going to do is be like, tell you when it's going to die. So you may as well just let it die naturally, with no warning. And then the monthly food, bedding, and hay. I don't know about this bedding and hay. What's the hay for? Isn't the hay the bedding? You need extra hay? Find the hay. Go out, find the hay, find some old, grass to make its bedding. Cut that $30 a month out, and that seems fair. That seems like a good sheep pet to me. Because the guinea pig doesn't care. It doesn't need store-bought hay. I don't even know it needed hay at all. I'm still confused. What's it using the hay for? It's not a horse. All right. That's the guinea pig. It's a fine pet. Next is the canary at $100 to $150. Whoa. What does this article think we are? Stockbrokers? Come on. $100 to $150. If I can do that, I might as well get a cat. 3 cats. My 2 cats cost $50 for me. So I don't know why in the world anyone would get a canary at that price. Let's see how this article justifies this madness. Thanks to their day-to-day ease of care and among male canaries, their trademark singing. Oh, so only the males sing. Canaries have been one of the most popular types of pet for more than 500 years. Wow. Not nearly as long as dogs, of course, because dogs are awesome. But 500 years is pretty impressive. These animals, among the easiest of their species to own, live for about 8 to 15 years and are relatively inexpensive compared with other popular pet birds such as parrots. Pet stores will typically sell canaries for about $100 to $150. Breeders often sell for less. Excluding the costs of cage, toys, canaries can get bored and require entertainment. And unforeseen veterinary visits, you can expect to pay about $100 per year for food and miscellaneous supplies. All right. So again, skip the veterinary visits for this one. If it dies, it dies. Sorry. But I just don't see. I mean, what's the vet really going to do in most cases? You're going to pay for a canary surgery? That's ridiculous. Get a fresh canary at that point. I know it sounds rough, but that's just, we're trying to be cheap here. We're trying to save money this episode. $100 per year for food and miscellaneous supplies, and if it lives for 15 years, that's $1,500. I don't know about this one. Plus the $150 to get it in the first place. If you can find the breeder, as they say, that will sell it for less, and I don't know what they mean by miscellaneous supplies. What does this one need? Hay, too. You got to buy a bale of hay for your guinea pig and your canary. I don't know. I think this one should be taken off the list. I do not recommend the canary. And I'm looking at a picture of one right now, which has got a dead black hole as an eye. I don't see them being good pets. And birds, they stink. Let's be honest. They don't smell very good. They use the bathroom a lot. You got to clean the cage out. You don't want a bird. Especially $100 to $150 bird. The best way to own a bird is to find an injured bird outside and then nurse it back to health. And maybe it will stay, and maybe it can't fly anymore, so you have to keep it. That's the way to own a bird. Find a wild bird that needs your care. Don't kidnap a bird with a wild I guess not, healing it to health is kind of like kidnapping it from the wild, but it would die without you. So it's necessary that you do that. It's not necessary to get a canary, and it's way too expensive. Veterinary visits for the canary? Unforeseen veterinary visits? How do you even know? What does your canary do where you know it needs to go to the veterinarian? It's just lying on the ground. At that point, it's dead. I don't recommend the canary. That's that. Guinea pig, maybe. Canary, no. Way too expensive. I don't even know why this made the list. They're just trying to throw this in there. This article must be written by, the big canary companies. Folks, we're going to take another break here. We have, again, more pets to come, some more bugs coming up, and some of my favorite, the cheapest of the cheap, are still on the way. I'll talk to you in a moment.
Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
We are back. I hope you enjoyed that nice little break. Some music to go with it. I forgot what the ad was for that time, but we're talking about cheap pets. The cheapest of the cheap. Next on our list, this is one I'm unfamiliar with. I believe it's pronounced Daegu. Daegu? Apparently it's like a guinea pig. It's $20 to $100. Let's read the article here. Maybe we can learn a little more. Daegus, which come from Chile and are a type of rodent similar to a guinea pig, make surprisingly easy pets when socialized from a young age. So you got to get it young. These animals are a pet that require little maintenance and space. There is one catch, however, they do best in pairs because they're extremely social critters. Okay, whoa. So this article kind of tricked us. At $20 to $100, really what it meant is $40 to $200 because you got to get two. Daegus can be found for around $20 to $35 each from a shelter and around $80 to $100 each from a breeder. After buying a multi-level cage, $50 to $150. Geez, again, what is this? This is the cheap pets list. And some other supplies, $100. Some other supplies, what does that mean? You can expect to pay between $60 and $120 yearly on food for each Daegu. Guinea pig food works fine depending on its appetite. All right, this is another one that might be a little too expensive to be on this list, if you ask me. I'm a little uncomfortable with the Daegu. Let's, even just stop talking about it. It's too expensive. We're skipping to the next one. The butterfly. This one's nice because you can just catch them in the wild. Or you can buy them. They're less than $30. Butterflies are one of the few pets you can order from Amazon. You can order in a caterpillar form. Wow, that's kind of cool. And you'll watch it grow, and you'll watch it, what do they call that? Metamorphosize to a beautiful flying butterfly. It would be cool to see the whole cocoon process. I don't think I've ever watched that all take place. Raising butterflies is fairly easy and requires little space and time, though most kit guarantees only that some of the few caterpillars they send will reach maturity. So you'll need to consider the cost of more than one. The best part about this pet is that most butterfly species feed on just a mixture of sugar and water. Expect to pay less than $30 to raise and keep your butterflies. All right, this is what I'm talking about, folks. The butterfly as a pet. Super cheap, beautiful. Beautiful animal. You want this one to get loose in your home. Highly recommend the butterfly. According to the sugar and water, come on. That's the cheapest food you can possibly get. It's like a hummingbird, which is, another good. We're going to put the hummingbird on the list as just one you would, you fill up the thing, the feeder, and you hang it outside your window and you just see them come to your window. That's as good as a pet. It approaches your house every day, so there we go. You can't tell the difference between one and the other. You basically just pretend it's the same one. So that's the butterfly. Less than $30. Highly recommended. Excuse me. Our next creature on the list is the sea monkey. Yes, you might remember this one if you're from the 70s, if you were a child in the 70s. Marketed somewhat nonsensically as the world's only instant pets, sea monkeys is the brand name for a type of brine shrimp that are sold in novelty kits, usually to children. They make remarkably easy pets, probably one of the easiest in terms of maintenance. Just pour a packet containing salt, conditioner, and brine shrimp eggs into a tank of water and wait a few days for the little crustaceans to hatch. After, all you'll need to do is change the water every once in a while and feed them the growth food that comes with most kits, which typically cost between $8 and $16. So, wow. This is one of my favorites because it's super cheap. Again, though, this is one of the pets that it's not really a pet. It's never going to love you. It's never going to look you in the eyes. And you're never going to connect with it, really. And frankly, you might not even know if it's alive or not. So consider that when you get it. It's more of something just to look at. It's really, honestly, not even fun to look at. It kind of just is going to sit on your shelf and be an eyesore. So consider that if when you are buying it. It's not a pet, nor is it beautiful. But it's only $8 to $16, and that's what matters, folks. That's what this episode's about. I'm here for the Frugal. There we go. The sea monkey, which is also just brine shrimp. I don't know why you'd ever want that in your house, but there we go. Next on the list, the Venus flytrap. Disclaimer, I've bought these a couple of times, and they always die in like a week. You can put the fly in its mouth, and it is going to die. These are $4 to $40, excuse me. $40 is way too much. If it costs $40, I don't recommend it because it'll be dead in a week. A plant qualifies as a pet if it hunts and eats animals, right? Sure. I guess that counts. Venus flytraps are unique in that they have a special mechanism that's able to close rapidly on insects unlucky enough to land on their lobes. The plants aren't too difficult to raise, requiring minimal space, consistent sunlight, and a special type of soil. About $6 for a gallon. Oh, maybe that's what I did wrong. I didn't have the special soil. Okay, so maybe I was wrong. Maybe it will live longer. They are inexpensive when bought young. Both young and older children love them. They need virtually none of your time, and unlike dogs, cats, and most of the other creatures on this list, don't require a pet sitter when you leave town. The quintessential low-maintenance pet, if ever there was one. There we go. I didn't even think about the pet sitter when I've been going through this list, because there's a lot of these that, you're going to have to hire a pet sitter to watch your hermit crabs, which that's just extra cost, So I'm going to say stick to the pets that don't even require a sitter. The sea monkey, really just the sea monkey and the Venus flytrap. Maybe the butterfly. Throw some extra sugar water in its kennel, and it should be fine. I don't know about the goldfish, because I feel like that's one of the big ways that they always die is of being overfed. So, stick to the Venus flytrap, really. It's just a plant. Just sits in the corner. And you'll probably, I'm going to say that's more interesting than the sea monkey. More fun to look at. It probably experiences more feelings than the sea monkey, if I had to guess. $40 is a bit much, but yeah, $40. And make sure to get that special soil that it's talking about. I skimped out, I guess, on the special soil. But they don't tell you that at Home Depot. You think it's a Home Depot. You see it. It's in this big store. There's no sunlight. There's birds flying around for some reason. I don't know why that's a thing. I've noticed it less recently, but I remember when I was a kid, I'd always see birds flying around like Costco, just crapping on the food and stuff. It's not appropriate. I think I don't know if they doubled down on the doors or put some high-pitched sound that scares birds away, but I remember there used to always be birds in the Costco's. Or Sam's Club. Whichever one you frequent. They were in both. But yeah, Venus flytrap, highly recommended. as long as you don't kill it. Stick around. We're going to take another break. I will talk to you in a second.
The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Travel Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hello, my friends. I hope you enjoyed the break. We are back. We're approaching the end of our cheap pets list. I hope you've found this information to be valuable. I think it's very valuable. Some of you may have been like, hey, I want to get a dog, but I can't afford it. Get a sea monkey. $8. Way cheaper than any dog. Unless, of course, you go to some third world country. You can just pick one off the street, but you never know where it's been. Next on our list is the praying mantis. Beautiful bug. I don't approve as bugs as pets. I think they're gross, and I think they're pointless, and they belong outside with the other creatures or to be eaten by birds. But, you know, if you feel so inclined to keep one in your house, it makes a great cheap pet. The praying mantis is great for people who don't want to make a fussy, emotional connection with their new pet. Yes. That is right. That's a great way to look at it. Because when it dies, you're just like, oh, whoops. And then you throw it out. And then, you put something else in there. Depending on the species, they typically cost between $6 and $25 each. Though you can purchase eggs and nymphs for much less. Rest assured, this insect whose females kill and eat males after or during sex won't provide that. Still, praying mantises are cool to look at. It's fun to watch them feed, and on the list of easiest pets, they rank right up there. Speaking of which, food is the only catch with this strange pet. Praying mantises eat live insects, which can cost about $100 per year. That's a little expensive, but I don't know if they eat worms. I might have a solution for you in just a minute. So you'll have to do that research on your own. I'm not going to do it. If praying mantises eat worms, but they're live. They'll be wriggling around. Or you can just get a female one and, mate it and then watch it eat its lover. That would be fun. That would be cool. It's cool to watch praying mantises fight. I used to do that when I was a kid. You'd catch two and you put them in a jar and you shake it up and then all of a sudden it goes down. Or you put them with like a spider or something. Amazing. Amazing thing. So that's the praying mantis. Great choice. Next is the scorpion. With their two pincers and a venomous stinger, it doesn't take a ethologist to see that scorpions make for a look but don't touch kind of pet for most. So also one of the best choices for pet owners who don't want a lot of affection or have time to give it. Yes, a scorpion is a cool, more of a vanity pet. It's more of a decoration, really. They're easy to care for, perhaps the most low-maintenance pet on the list. Well, what about the sea monkeys? You just put salt in the water, or the Venus flytrap. I don't think it's the most low maintenance. They need only a terrarium for living quarters and a heating pad, totaling about $50. The catch, like praying mantises, scorpions eat live insects, so plan on spending about $75 per year on crickets. They also don't require a lot of water, but will need to have a bit of it around. I don't even know about the terrarium for this one. It says you need a terrarium. I don't know if I believe that. Because I had a buddy. I've talked about this before. I had a buddy. He had a scorpion. And he just kept it in a bowl. It was a big bowl with a pile of sand in it. And a little half log thing that the scorpion could hide under. and the walls of the bowl were high enough that it couldn't crawl out. So you just had this cool, it was like a centerpiece, like a deserty style centerpiece. And it was a scorpion. It's kind of scary because, it would try to crawl out. And if it ever did get out, I don't feel like a scorpion sting can hurt that bad, even if it got you, which I don't think it also would. I don't think that's the scorpion's prerogative to sting you. I feel like it's a waste of its precious venom. Just got to save that for little crickets and maybe worms. I don't know. Does a scorpion eat a worm? It could. I don't imagine worms taste very good. And finally, our last creature on this list for today is the rat. Gross. $10 to $20 for a rat. Choosing a rat as a pet may seem like a gamble, but many rat owners say the furry little animals are cuddly if handled often from a young age. I don't want to cuddle with it. I don't even want it in my house. It does have, cute little hands, and it's not the worst. Like when you see one up close and you look into its dead eyes, it's not the worst, ugliest thing, I guess. But, I don't know, it's a rat. Bubonic plague, come on. An alternative to hamsters and other rodents, rats are also low maintenance. All you need to buy is a 20-gallon aquarium or similarly sized wire cage. You want a terrarium. Don't get the wire cage. You can smell its things. Expect to oat $35 or more for the wire cage. Some bedding and toys and food, which will cost you about $40 per year, and you'll have a happy animal that doesn't need much else. I think rats are kind of cool because you can train them to do some things, from what I understand. I've seen some interesting rats on Reddit that do some fun stuff, but do you really want to spend that much time with it? I can't even believe it's recommending you cuddle with it on here. My dog's barking outside. I can hear it. I hope you can't. It's gross. It's got the beady little black eyes. This is one that's going to escape into your house, and you're never getting it back once it escapes. So you can't really take it out under your bed. And they get everywhere. And they breed like crazy. Don't get two, because then you're going to have 400 rats in your house. And it's just bad. I can't decide what I feel about the rat. The picture that I'm seeing right now, it's kind of cute looking. It just kind of looks like a big hamster. But it's also not showing its disgusting hairless tail that wraps around your wrist. And ugh. It's a nasty pet. I don't recommend the rat. Let's do a quick recap of this list before we take our next break. First, we had the goldfish, $3 to $15. Great choice. Grows, to a size. They say it remembers you for 3 months. I don't believe it, but you pretend. You can pretend that it remembers you and that it cares about you and loves you. Leopard gecko, $20 to $70. That's a fine pet. Kind of gross looking. I'm not a fan, again, of reptiles. I don't think they should be kept as pets. They should be left in the wild. Left in the wild to sit on a rock. Ants, $15 to $25. Sure. Why not? Watch them dig holes in the sand. It's got to be a lot of fun. Hermit crab. My highest recommendation on the list. The hermit crab. The fun. You get to paint the shell, even though it's apparently controversial. Everything's controversial these days. Don't worry about it. Just paint it. It's fine. Beautiful pet. Beautiful pet. They do kind of stink, though. So keep that in mind when you get one. Keep it out in the garage or something. The betta fish, Siamese fighting fish, if you want to call it that. It seems a little insensitive these days. $2 to $10. Pretty cheap. Can't beat that. Don't get the stupid decorations for the tank, as we said. Either for the hermit crab, just put an old pencil sharpener in there or something. That'll be fine. Guinea pigs, $20 to $40. Basically a glorified rat, or rat without a tail. Canary, $100 to $150. Great. Unless you have cats, way too expensive. The canary shouldn't even be on the list. It's way too expensive. The dagu, again, I think too expensive. Another glorified rat. There's not a picture of it here, but they're basically telling you it looks like a guinea pig. So there you go. Butterflies. Psh, beautiful. That's all I got to say about that. Sea monkeys, most boring pet on the list besides maybe the Venus flytrap. $8 to $16 for sea monkeys. Brine shrimp. Who doesn't want brine shrimp in their home? Venus flytrap, $4 to $40. Great. Keeps flies out of your house, maybe, if it doesn't die in a day. The praying mantis, fun. Eats its lover. You can get all sorts of different colors of them. Get them as eggs. They're cheaper. The scorpion, $20 to $50. Keep it in a bowl, in a centerpiece on your table. And then, once again, the rat, $10 to $20. I don't recommend it. Folks, stick around. We'll take one more break, and we'll come back and talk about worms. Talk to you then.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Folks, we made it. We're at the end of today's podcast, but before we go, I'm going to fulfill my promise to you, and we're going to talk about worms, the ultimate cheap pet. Again, this is one of the more unloving pets, emotionless, but low maintenance. And this is the best pet on the list. This is my personal entry to whatever crap list that person made. With way too expensive pets. The only ones that should have been on there were the goldfish, the flytrap, and the sea monkeys, and the hermit crabs. Those are the only ones that should have been on that list. The rest were way overpriced. Somewhere almost $200. Now, let's talk about worms. The beauty of the worms, why you should have worms, why every family in America should have worms. What you do, you get a bin of some sort. You fill it with dirt. Well, first you put like a layer of rocks down. You put holes. Okay, let me start over. You get a bin. You put holes in the bottom of the bin. You put a layer of rocks down. You put a layer of newspaper down. And then you add dirt on top of that newspaper. And then you insert the worms. Now, you can buy your worms online. I recommend buying the worms online. You're going to want red wigglers, specific type of worm, and they'll send it to you in the mail. And it's going to come, they freeze them. And when worms get too cold, they all bunch together in a group. So you're going to get a big old ball of worms. And then you empty them into your bin, and over a couple of minutes, maybe an hour, they will warm up and they'll slowly expand in size, and they will spread out into their new home. And they breed quickly, so you're going to have more worms soon if you plan on feeding them to your other bugs. Again, I don't know if they eat worms, but you can look that up on your own. It is a living creature. It is a living bug, so I figure they may as well eat that one too. I'm sure it's chock full of nutrients. And here's the best part. You got a lot of, say you cook at home a lot. You have a lot of biodegradable waste. You make coffee at home. You have a lot of paper you throw away. The worms will eat it all. Anything that's biodegradable. Peels, fruit peels, vegetable peels, old scraps. They won't eat meat. Don't put meat in there. But what you do is you just throw your old scraps and your old paper and stuff in the bin, and the worms will consume it. And when they're done consuming it, they're going to, their excrement is gold, essentially. Their excrement is gold. You separate the worms from the soil that they've eaten, and they're called castings, worm castings. And it's the ultimate soil, ultimate nutrients. Your plants will grow like crazy. So not only can you feed your canary, you can feed your plants, maybe your Venus flytrap too, if you decide to get 2 of the pets on the list. You can, and so you have to water your worms every now and then. They got to stay moist. And that's why you poke holes in the bottom of the bin. So you want a water collection system beneath there. And that water is also, you get the worm soil and then you water it with the worm juice that comes out of the bottom. Also, crazy plant nutrients in there. A couple things to be careful about. You want to make sure, you don't want your dirt to be too acidic or too alkaline. So you want to get a good mix of citrus stuff in there, and then like things like paper or, wood shavings or whatever. With paper, you want to be careful. Like, you don't want to put too much paper that has ink on it. Like, you don't want to put magazine paper in there, anything with like a weird coating on it. You don't want, the worms don't like that. It's not good for them. But they're going to breed like crazy. I think if you have, and they eat like crazy too. If you have a pound of worms, it's going to consume about a half pound a day. Now a pound of worms is a lot of worms. That being said, it's worth it for your trash. And eventually, you get enough worms in there, you're going to have to be going around town in different coffee shops, picking up their leftover grounds for your babies. But yeah, if you don't keep the correct amount of, if it's too hot in there or too wet, it's not good for them. You got to make sure, there's a little bit of maintenance involved, or they'll escape, and they can get out of anything. They can get out of anything and anywhere, and you'll end up finding dried up worms in your carpet. You don't want that. So I recommend keeping it outside if you can, if the temperature is not too bad for them. But again, if it gets really cold where you live in the winter, they'll just form together in the center of their home into a giant worm ball. They'll basically hibernate for the entire winter. So, best pet on the list, if you ask me, is the worm. Highly recommend it. It's got a million uses, millions of uses, I'm sure. And we need more worms on the planet. There's a worm shortage. So keep that in mind. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks again for tuning in to the GSMC Pet Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Go to our Twitter page, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, add us on Facebook. We want to be friends. We want to be your dearest, closest friend. I'm your host, Taylor Cowan. Remember to leave us a 5-star review. Thank you again for tuning in. Have a phenomenal evening. Good night.
You've been listening to the GSMC Pets Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.